Is it working? I'm not sure yet. It says waiting. I'm refreshing the page with bated breath. There we go. Okay, we are live. Awesome. All right, welcome everyone to... usually on Fridays I do a Friday form check, but I think this one might be Friday form chat. But also that's very cheesy, so I don't know if I want to do that. Welcome everyone to the stream. I'm here with Loopghost, or Jason, or Heavydisc, or also Excuse My Triceratops. Did I get all of them, or did I miss one of them in there?
It's also Heiser Unabomber.
Oh, Heiser Unabomber. That's on DG Course Review, right?
That's it.
Awesome.
Yep.
So if you don't know Jason, he is one of the, to me anyway, he's one of the original form. I refer to them as gurus, but they're just one of the really great teachers that are out there on the internet. One of the first people that I saw who really dove into disc golf form and kind of pieced it apart and gave little things to focus on that everyone can do to improve and to throw better. So I was really excited that Jason agreed to do this. So thank you for coming in.
Well, thanks for having me, Danny. And I know that it seems like every, I don't know, 5 years or so, someone comes along and sort of re-picks up the torch of how deep can you go on trying to make a positive impact on your own form, other people's form, you know, just an excitement that kind of comes usually naturally. Otherwise, you don't stick around with it. And I think you sort of, about 5 years after I got into it, you sort of picked it up. And I know you just went completely bananas, same way I did, which was probably throwing every single day, multiple times a day, putting obsessively, documenting everything, trying to figure out why you can't throw like Simon, you know?
Sounds familiar for sure.
Yeah, and then, you know, people just, like I myself, I have been in awe that there are certain people, like Sidewinder, who seems to have limitless capabilities for continuing to go into reviews. Whereas I, you know, years back, I just was like, I ran out of steam. I don't know that I can just do it day in and day out. Whereas there's a couple of guys who, yourself included, just you guys have, you know, you're doing a huge service to the disc golf community. So for that, thank you very much, and thank you for having me, and thank you for the kind words.
Well, thank you. Let's get started. I have a few questions, but it's just mostly just a conversational format that I'm going for. I'll take some questions off the chat as well. So if you have any questions for Jason, go ahead and drop them there, and I'll get to as many as I can. But for starters, let's get some background. How did you get started in disc golf?
So I get to blame and thank my little brother, who's 9 years my junior. He used to live in Denver. I live in Denver, and he would talk a little bit here and there while he was over eating dinner or something at my house about playing disc golf. And I had played in high school, so we're talking maybe 1992, 1993, with some of my buddies, where we probably had like a rock or a buzz, and we would go play a little 9-hole course. But it was, I mean, we didn't know the rules. We didn't know how to throw. We just were looking to get out away from our parents and, you know, have some fun.
It's almost more fun back then when you have just so much more freedom. Yeah.
Yeah, anything goes. And you always had a buddy who, like, he'd throw and just start walking down the course. And you'd be like, hey, I gotta hit you in the back of the head. And, you know, there was stuff like that. So that was, boy, I'm going to probably get this wrong, but I want to say that was maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And he bought me a Mako and an understable putter. It was a Vibram putter. I'm going to forget what that was. And I think that was it. And he basically, which, you know, in hindsight was a brilliant combo for a beginner, you know, like He didn't hand me a high-speed driver or even a fairway driver. He handed me a Mako and an understatable putter. And he said, you know, for the courses you're going to play, for the way you're going to throw, this is as good as it gets. And so, yeah, we played almost immediately, it just turned into every single day. I played a handful of times, and it was just the hook was set. I'd never there'd been a few times in my life where I'd gotten just totally obsessed with a game or a lifestyle of rock climbing or mountain biking, where you just go all in and you're like, this is all I want to do. But this was me waking up at 5:30 in the morning, meeting him at 6 o'clock, playing till 8 o'clock, driving to work. On my lunch break, I was throwing out, in a parking lot. As soon as work was over, I'd run over and I'd putt, and then I'd play around with my friends. And we did that almost every day for a year in the beginning. We'd play through like snowstorms and everything. It was just, that awesome time when you're just ramping up the learning curve. And unfortunately, you're usually learning terrible habits because you're asking the goofballs that you're playing with, hey man, how do you throw it? They're like, I think you throw it like you're throwing a lawnmower thing, or I've seen some things on the internet, and you just. Back then, there was disc golf course review, which was really, it was kind of in its infancy. It had been around, but I guess it wasn't the place. Disc golf review was the place where you had Blake, and I'm sure you've gone back and read those old threads.
I've read a few of them. Thanks.
Yeah, and they went deep. I mean, they were like trying to figure out disc pivot from grips and where the power pocket was. And then that's where the Beto drill started out, was this guy, Dan Beto or Beto. I'm going to probably get it wrong, whatever I choose. And, those were kind of the fundamentals for a lot of these guys that started around then trying to help other people. Was like, well, we've read this stuff that these guys are talking about, and a lot of it makes sense. So let's give it a go. And then we'd go out into the field and we'd try the Beto drill and be completely unsuccessful with it.
It's crazy how muscle memory is. It's so hard to change it.
Yeah. Oh, it was brutal. I mean, and I'm sure I don't know if you've taken on some coaching with other players or what role you've taken in in-person stuff, but so probably maybe like 4 years ago, I started kind of where people would email me and, you want to meet in person? I was like, look, I'm just a dude like you trying to figure this out. And they're like, well, any help is good help. So I'd go out and I kind of do the drills that I was working on. And slowly over the years, I started to develop kind of like a regular, like systematic, okay, where are you at in your form? Let's break it down and figure out how far back the chain we got to like work this thing. And now I'm definitely a better coach than a player. Like when I play with my friends who are like MPO players, it's rare that I beat them. And I lord it over them. Like,
do you ever give them a tip early of something they can do to improve just to get in their head the whole round?
They don't hear it.
People always ask me, they say, just give me tips throughout the round. It'll be fine. Like it won't be fine. That's not the way it works.
I will ruin everything you enjoy about the game.
So did you improve pretty quickly from when you started, or did it kind of take a while? Because like you said, you played every day for a year. Of course, you're ramping up the skill curve there, but was that just from repetition, or did you really start when did you really start to think about your form, and how quickly did you see improvement come?
Yeah. So back in my YouTube history, there is stuff from where I started let's try to see if I'm doing this right, which was, a couple years in. And I could throw a disc like a tourney high-speed driver if I got the angles right and I just got the nose angle lucky enough and everything else worked.
Kind of grip locked it a little bit, pulled it right.
Yeah, I could throw a disc 400 feet. And I was like, okay, I must know what I'm doing.
Obviously.
And I had tennis elbow.
Oh no.
I had, and it was getting worse and worse. And I was like, there is just something amiss here. Like, I don't think that it should hurt me to be doing this. And I put together a little, self-made video, pushed it up to DGCR, and was promptly told, like, man, you're a mess. It wounds the pride. You're like,
I got this figured out. I know what I'm doing. And then
proof's in the pudding, right? Dude, I think I should be able to throw 400 feet. I must know what I'm doing. No, I didn't. And it was the absolute common mistakes that you see over and over and over, which is, there's the lack of a real brace that you have to resist against. And it didn't really click for me until maybe like a year or 2 years ago when I saw you watch these videos over and over and over. And there's a slow motion video of David Wiggins Jr. And he's throwing some bombs, and someone put a camera right at the front of the tee pad or whatever what they were throwing off of. And he was throwing, like a huge, probably, I don't know, 600-foot plus shot. He braces and his foot slides completely straight down the pad. And it was kind of like one of those moments where I was like, if I was to blow my plant foot, I'm positive I wouldn't skitter that direction. I'm not making a lateral move in my throw. I'm like actively trying to spin my body. You know what I mean? Like that was sort of what I thought you were supposed to do. Learning to make a lateral move and then resist the forward momentum so that back leg will sort of like actually make the move forward. That was like the next moment where I was like, okay, as a dude I'm 45, I'm going to have 400 feet of power with a really short X step, or in some cases, like a one step, because I'm making the right move. Like you're trapping momentum and then releasing it forward, as opposed to anything trying to sort of like move the arm forward. You're just saying like, my body's a big bag of liquid. Let's just slosh it and then stop it, pull it tight, and redirect it down the line. And if you hold the disc right, man, that thing's going. And, that's one of the, I'll give you a second to talk because I know I'm rambling. But I think that's one of the tricks that I try to tell everybody when I'm doing lessons. Like my first lesson is that there's a physics trick at the heart of every backhand throw. And really it's at the back of forehand throws as well. But the main trick is just that you can put a disc inside of this little trebuchet, this little like swinging lever system. And if you just stay here and open the whole thing up, that motion really redirects the weight of the disc in a way that just flings it. So like you can do that motion with no body motion at all, no momentum trapping. And you know what happens. The disc goes far. It just hangs out. And if you keep your nose down, it flies a nice 150, 200 feet without you doing any work. And so I always say to guys, like if that's the little magic nugget that physics gives us, everything else we're doing has to make sure that we're not screwing up that little magic trick that happens right here. And so whatever this backswing is where you're pulling it into the center chest or bringing it into the center chest or loading it into the center chest, that's what you're doing. There's guys like Simon and Eagle and, they're definitely like using a rebounding effect to kind of speed up the backswing. But if you're not there with your timing, then just stay the hell away from like trying to like yank it from the top of the backswing. Because I guarantee you're going to hit left pec at best, and you're going to try to open it up. You're
walk
gonna
before
lose
you can
the
run,
magic.
for sure.
Yes, that's exactly what I would say. It's like,
I think.
Go ahead.
I think Tristan Tanner has been, just him coming up on the scene has been one of the greatest things for disc golf form, because people realize you don't have to 360 and sprint into the tee pad. I don't know if you have the chat pulled up, but Seabass22 actually disagrees with you. He says you're apparently doing it all wrong. So I don't know. You might have to take that up with him a little bit.
I'm still doing it all wrong. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew.
So you started making videos About then, you said like 7 years ago, or
Yeah, I'd have to go back.
yeah,
Seabass probably knows better than I do. Um,
a while ago. What is your favorite video that you've made from all the ones? Because you've made a few about nose down, or some really good ones about the brace. And I remember watching videos you're throwing in a parking lot in the snow, and I see you out there and layered up, and I think that guy likes disc golf a whole lot more than I do. I wouldn't be out there and doing anything
uh,
in that weather.
okay, I'm gonna answer that question. My dog's going nuts. Give me
Okay,
1 second.
take your
Okay.
time. Guys, for people who are asking form questions in the chat, we'll get to those a little bit later on. I'm trying to just get through the kind of the backstory part here, but we'll jump into those as quick as I can.
My dog going completely bananas.
They like to do that,
Yeah, right when you're on a video call.
of course.
So favorite video, that's a really tough question. I think in terms of like ones, like if someone was gonna go watch one Loopghost video out there, I would say either the one leg drill, or the windmill drill. They kind of cover two different things. What I really like about the one leg drill is every great thrower, if you just said, I want you to throw from your plant leg only, they can do it no problem. They can, I guarantee you, it might take them a second to just kind of work it out, but that's where the throw is happening. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like you should be able to basically compress the front leg through the downswing, through the extension forward, bring your hips forward and be balanced for that whole thing. And you should be able to throw, if you're a 450 foot thrower, you should be able to throw from 1 foot 300 feet without really trying that hard.
Mm-hmm.
That's where every throw takes place. The X step, all of that is like prep work for what's going to happen on that front leg. And so, I feel like that was another one of those aha moments where, you kind of go, okay, I have to be here on the front leg from the top of the backswing through the down. I call it the top of the backswing, the downswing, which is like a ball golf term from bringing the club down.
As they're coming down. That makes sense.
Yeah. We call that, really like bringing the disc to center chest.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have, from this point, is really just follow through. There's an extension happening, but you're not actively trying to make that extension happen.
If you've done everything else right, it all just levers into it.
It just happens. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it levers in. It's like if you said to a ball golfer or a baseball swing, after you've connected the bat here, it's going where it's going.
Mm-hmm.
Like you set up your angles, your follow through, it should be almost impossible to screw up the follow through other than, give me a chance, I'll screw it up.
It's just momentum, yeah.
It's just momentum from that point, so you're sort of like, and I think that, I'll talk for just 1 second before we get too much further down the line, that it's utterly painful that a right-handed thrower with a backhand has to complete a left-handed swing. Every aspect of it's left-handed. A left-handed golf swing, a left-handed hockey shot, a left-handed baseball swing. It's all opposite-handed. And so, I didn't have any real idea other than, for me, it kind of clicked that a tennis backswing is pretty similar. But you never really like power up on a tennis swing like you do with the momentum that you need for, a tennis racket does the vast majority of the work unless you're.
It's just a big lever on the end of your arm there.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So I just moving on a little bit. If you're finished, the next question was going to be it's going to come across as a bit biased, seeing as I work for a disc golf company, but don't worry about that. What are some of your favorite discs? Because I haven't seen like an in the bag or anything from you. Just what are like 3 or 4 discs that you really either you're jamming with right now or have really been a part of your game for a while?
So I like the Wraith. So I live in Denver. We're at 5280 elevation. So anything that works at sea level does not work in Denver.
I hear
And
wraiths and sidewinders go really good up at elevation.
yeah, they do. You know, sidewinders are awesome up for mountain courses, especially. Um, Beat up discs do really well up here. It's hard to turn. I wouldn't say it's hard. It's impossible for me to power up a destroyer in Denver and get it to really turn and fly like if I was down at sea level. And I've played at sea level, and it's a different beast. My rates don't work at all. They're roller discs at sea level. So I like. There's a couple of like Proline wraiths that I bag a lot of, and they're that kind of like swirly Proline plastic, and man, those things fly amazing. I still throw a metric ton of rocks, although for years I threw truths. The EMAC Truth is probably one of the best mid-ranges ever manufactured. I mean, it's so close to being able to take over the place of fairway drivers.
Yeah,
that it's kind of ridiculous.
it just goes.
Yeah, you can throw them too far because the glide is so good. I'm not sure what magic they worked, but it was really good. And I threw when the Truth was out for a long time. It was kind of the original EMAC Truth, and then the tooling changed, and I couldn't find the truths that I want. I think EMAC had the same issue, and he went back and said, let's stable this thing up and call it an EMAC Truth, and now that's what I throw if I'm throwing those guys. For putting, I really like the baseline plastic for like MVP stuff, the
Electron.
Atom.
Yeah, Electron, Atom, and what's the other one? Spin, I think.
Yeah,
they've got a lot of them.
The spins, but those guys, and then for years and years I threw Wizards, and I think that's just one of those gateway discs that is just people who throw them love them, and they will never not throw them. I still use them as catch discs. They're just awesome discs. And then I got to throw a shout out to like my favorite goofball disc, which is the Polecat. That thing is the best warm-up catch disc that you'll ever find. Like,
I'm sure you've seen the video of Kyle Sawtell and Paul Macbeth. I believe it was Kyle.
Oh,
they like a 92-gram polecat, and they were like, it's a paper plate, it's not going to have anything. So Kyle just lets Paul unload on that polecat directly into his back. Have you seen that?
Thinking. I've seen the video, and I was just like, what?
That makes no sense. Golly, he's going to have slip disc later on or something because of that.
Yeah, she might still sting. I don't know. That could hurt. But I did manage to get a champion plastic polecat when Innova made those for like 6 months.
That's like a super limited run, isn't it?
Yeah, they just pumped them out, and I was like, God, I'd kill myself if I didn't get my hands on a couple of those.
So about your game, what do you think is the best part of your game? Are you are you focused on your drives and focused on smashing for distance, or are you more of like the mid-range, straight down the fairway guy, or you just grind the putting green so you're 100% inside the circle?
Man, like, I'm going to pretend you asked me this question a year ago. Like everybody, COVID has slowed my game down tremendously. I don't go to the course right now. Kids and everything around, we're playing it super safe. And so I've gone to the field a handful of times. I still do some lessons. I'm gonna do some lessons tomorrow, but you got to stay apart. You're outside. It's a whole deal. But I think if I was to say like what stays the most consistent in my game is just my ability to drive controlled with low, like there's not much going in to get the power out. So I can be pretty consistent, in terms of my shots. Other than that, like right now, I think my touch game is garbage. Like it feels like torture when you're 150 feet out and you're leaving it 30 feet short. You're like, that is not something I should be doing.
It's hard because that shot too is a lot of muscle memory, and so the only way to get better at it is to just practice.
Yeah, it is. You just have to do it and do it and do it. And you have to do it in tailwinds and headwinds and crosswinds right, crosswinds left, quartering winds. You have to know all of your discs, how they're going to take those things, and factor in that you're probably, if you're trying to be competitive, I would say it is 100% at this point in the world of disc golf. You better be throwing forehand. That is no longer an optional shot. And I would even go so far as to say you should be throwing grenades. You should be throwing thumbers. You should be throwing rollers. You should be throwing every shot you can get your hand on.
James Conrad even throws forehands.
That's rare, but yeah, that's true. Yeah. I feel like James Conrad is one of those guys who I want to just like reach out and go, James, you could probably throw 100 feet further. You don't need that like 15 and just tweak a few minor details of his form. And I'm not saying by any stretch that guy can't throw bombs. He can throw bombs. There's a lot of guys who can throw bombs, but then when you match him up against a shorter statute guy like Garrett Gurthie, you go, what if James Conrad just did what Garrett Gurthie does? Just take his exact frame and do that, or do what Simon does, or what Eagle does. And, take the biggest, lankiest NBA player and just force him into that shape and watch what happens. Like there's a few guys who are throwing further with less physical attributes. And, Paige Pierce, great example. She is probably the smallest package pound for pound thrower in the universe, and if you're studying form, look for the greats who are doing it with less. You know what I mean? Those are the people that blow my mind.
Definitely. Yeah. It's Tristan Tanner is just the name that always comes to mind. But I mean, even Paul Macbeth or Drew Gibson, you don't see them usually taking that really big run up. There's just the slow, measured kind of approach. So I've been kind of baiting chat a little bit. I've been kind of dragging it on for a little bit.
Okay.
I told them I would ask them your questions. Okay. Someone has a question. What is the best disc you would give to a beginner that you're trying to get into disc golf? And what is also the best disc you're going to give to a beginner that you would rather never play disc golf again?
My daughter's over here. That's a good question. So a beginner that you want to keep them playing, I would say, if they're just, girlfriend or kid, or, a guy that doesn't have a couple 100 feet of power, I'm going with something that's out of the box, just really turny. So like a turny mid-range, they're probably going to be, a beat up rock if you got one of those hanging around.
It's a great use of old beat up discs.
What's a DD disc that
Don't worry about it. Don't worry. A lot of times on those base plastic mid ranges, like I know rocks are super popular in Colorado. I remember watching Central Coast footage of just people bombing them up in the mountains because they just go forever in the air. But if you have a mid range that's too beat up and you're like, I got to take this out of my bag, set it aside, leave it for a beginner, because it's going to be their most useful disc, just about. Yeah,
least would be a Gateway Spirit, which is the most overstable disc I've ever thrown.
Wow.
I've seen, the only person I've ever seen it thrown by, I think Johnny McRae might have bagged one for like a second. And Nico, when he was throwing Gateway, would throw them from time to time. And I tried to throw it in Denver, and it was just one of those ones that like you'd throw it flat or with Anheuser, and 50 feet out of your hand, it's just already on edge going to the ground. Mm-hmm. You're just like, that's maybe good for a thumber or something like that.
I like to say those discs are angry because as soon as they leave your hand, they're just like, no, and they go straight at the ground. It just reminds me of just being super mad. Matthew has a great question. It's something that I teach, but I don't I don't know that it's, I know it's a good mental note, but I don't know that it's literally correct. It says when you throw, is there any opening or closing of the shoulder joint between your bicep and your chest, or does it stay at 90 degrees? I've also heard some say to shrug your shoulder. Is that a thing?
Let me start with the easy part, which is shrugging your shoulder is probably the worst thing you can do.
So that's like
that's
this?
almost this. If you see a screen cap of yourself and you've got this happening in your, that means that you started pulling the disc at the top of the backswing and you started pulling with your whole arm. At this point, you know, at the top of the backswing, if I'm working with somebody, I'm like, these shoulders need to be level through the backswing, the downswing, and the extension forward. Like, this never happens. That's a telltale sign that you've started to try to, you know, you started the race too soon. You know, you didn't even get to the starting line before you started to accelerate the disc. This is the starting line. You know, you're just making sure you get this guy back to here, and if everything is tight and rotating around, it's coming out from there forward. So this angle does change, but not on purpose at all. You know, I think of this whole upper body as a framework. Like, it's just bone and tendon and muscle. And in the backswing, if I touch, you know, this old trick where you just touch your elbow, right? I'm going to backswing. I can still touch this elbow. I bring it forward. So there's this little spot where, like, right here, it might slide just a hair more into the pocket, but it's like impossible to try to slide into the pocket. You have to just really commit to resisting on the front side. And when you do it right, you know, that kind of brings the whole thing into that second position, that slightly deeper position. Okay, so if your body is opening to the target, it's gone. You know, this thing can't, it's gonna want to open. So you have to kind of come in, this motion, it's coming in this way, and it's trapped, and you're still a little bit closed, and that's where this gets a little bit deeper, and then back forward. And it gets really, really difficult to sort of explain the feeling when you're not standing next to someone who's throwing. And so I do a lot of tricks when I'm teaching, and you know, I'm like, I'll get behind people and I'm like, all right, get into your brace. You know, put your braced position where the disc is at center chest, and I'll walk up and I'll take both hands, put them on the back of their butt, and I'll shove them forward. And if they can't resist, they just tip forward. I'm like, you're not in a resisting brace. You're just in sort of a pivot through brace. Mm-hmm. And that's the going back to, if it's a lateral move, you know, like if you're moving back and forth this way, and I'm just saying, you know, where's the pressure? If you're moving back and forth like this, it better be on the insteps of your feet. If you roll to the outside, you're not going to have anything to bring you back this way. You know, it's like Sean Clement, the ball golf instructor who does great videos. 5-10 years ago, he had a video where he was talking about, you have suction cups on the inside of your insteps. They suck in, and that's what stops you from being able to go that direction. You know, if you're back that way, it's that way. It's the inside. And if you watch like a surfer, you know, like a guy on a surfboard, those knees come in, they go under the instep, and it has to be butt out and a really athletic position. And it's really easy to lose that. This is an athletic position. This needs to be like a football player making a fluid juke or something like that. You know, as you're trying to work out the mechanics, things are going to have to slow down to a crawl, but you don't want to get stuck in this trap of like, now I'm a mechanical robot where it's like step 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, you know, there's a 1, 2, 3 position, but it's the same position that, you know, if I handed Danny a 5-pound weight and I said, throw this onto the roof of this 3rd floor building,
I would fail, but okay.
I think you do. I do. I think you could throw it onto the 3rd floor, but I think it would change the way you think about, like, how am I going to get this momentum trapped and carried so that I can bring it up?
It's interesting.
You know, like that. It's your brain does totally wacky things to you when you're carrying or trying to throw something light. And the heavier it gets, the better your brain gets at sort of like saying, that won't work. Crappy mechanics won't work. I have to do this like something really like profound has to happen for me to move this heavy weight to a different location. It sucks that discs weigh so little that our brain just tricks us into, doing bad stuff.
Do you think like a literal heavy disc would be a good idea? Like that's the name of your blog. So and that's from what I understand, that's from describing the feeling of the disc having a lot of weight as it comes to the release point. If you're leveraging everything correctly, the disc as it's ripping out of your hand feels like it's really heavy. But do you think, I know Gateway made some 200-gram Wizards a while ago. I don't know if they still do, but do you think it'd be possible to just make like a 3-pound disc or something?
I don't know. It's a strange thing. I don't know if it would actually correlate past sort of like a drill to like trying, or if your body would start to do other bad things. I'm not sure. I know that like as I've tried to like dial it into more and more like feedbacky style things, there are certain things like throwing a basketball with 2 hands that seem to sort of work okay. You know, like that sort of does a good job. I've tried throwing really heavy things, and I'm just like, it's so much slower because I've added this extra chunk of momentum that I sort of have to deal with.
Yeah.
That it takes me out of the right balance. Does that make sense? Like if I try to throw a real hammer, like a 5-pound hammer or something, it would probably be a good drill for me to be like, yeah, okay, I'm not resisting. But like, if I just said, replace the hammer with an actual disc, I might be moving too slow because it's a different amount of momentum.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That makes sense. So it's good for feeling the brace, but maybe not the leverage that needs to happen in the upper body. That makes more sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard to get a hammer or a heavy object to sort of collapse inward.
Yeah,
and
without breaking a hib or something.
Hit yourself in the chin with a hammer. And I don't suggest throwing hammers in the house. I'm not saying anybody in this house has done that, but definitely don't do it. It's not a good idea.
So I know you said you don't do form checks anymore, but for my Discord server, I have a few that I do, and I thought it would be a fun way to talk about disc golf form would be to take a look at this guy's form. This is Boone. And just kind of talk through different things that you would have him do to improve here. So it's not like form checking 50 people a day like I think Seabass does, but what I looked at this guy's form last night and I gave him what advice I could, but I'm interested to hear what you would say. I just sent you the link on Skype if you can pull it up.
Oh, yep, okay. Chat, here we go.
And then I'm sure you're familiar with like the comma and the period to move frame by frame in YouTube.
Oh yeah.
Okay, good.
So are you gonna screen share yours, or am I gonna screen share mine, or?
Ooh, I don't know. That'd actually be a good idea. I wish I would have thought ahead that far.
Have everybody look at my screen.
I can do that. Give me.
Or do you why don't you show them your screen and you show them the video while I'm looking at it.
I'll try to go to the part that the same part that's in the Skype call. If you try and share your screen with me.
Okay,
this is way more complicated than I had planned on it being.
We're getting busy here. All right, screen share.
Here, no, I can do this.
Are you seeing my screen now?
Let me see. I'm not seeing your screen. Let me go back to the scene here.
It says stop sharing, so I'm going to assume I'm sharing.
Yeah, I can see it here. Let me try. See if I just change this to... I don't think it's going to work for me. Okay, I will just show... I'll just try and catch up on my screen to whatever part you're talking about.
I'm going to stop screen sharing, and I'm going to I'm going to go, I'm about 4 seconds in here and I'm stopped. And I'm just going to do the old period forward
Okay,
maneuver for this guy, okay?
sounds good. Should I tell you what I talked about, or do you just want to take
Yeah,
the?
let's start with what you talked about. And you're the form guru.
uh, form. What's the learner version of guru? I'm not sure.
You are the young Padawan.
A Padawan. I like Padawan. I'm down with that. Hang on, I've got to be able to see what chat is saying over on the side here. Okay, we're back. All right, 4 seconds in, going frame by frame.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so almost the entire, I'm just going to start with roll back the tape to the beginning of our conversation. The entire throw has to happen from the front leg, the plant leg. And what I'm seeing here is that over half of this this fella's throw, what's his name?
I know his username in Discord is Boone.
Boone. Okay, so Boone's not getting off his back leg. He's bringing the disc forward while he's still on his back leg. And so by the time he hits kind of what I would consider center chest, his back foot still probably got some weight underneath it. I would just say, if we were sitting out in the field, I would literally say, flip your back foot over, like, so that it's tiptoed,
Mm-hmm.
And then let's try and throw from our front leg. And let's see, even just take the disc out of it. Can you swing from your front leg? If I handed you a golf club and said, swing from, in Boone's case, from his right leg, can you swing a lefty swing from that right leg?
That's a great way to teach it.
That's not what's happening here. What's happening here is it's sort of like he's back to the way I used to think of this, which was, this is a rotational move. He's setting up his feet to kind of try to spin. What we need to do is we need to make a lateral move, brace up against it, catch the weight, and then just release it forward.
I think the way I taught it is usually I teach whether your toes are farther apart than your heels or whether your heels are farther apart than your toes. Because you'll notice, or what I've noticed, is a lot of the big distance throwers or any professional thrower really will tend to have their weight kind of over their back foot, and then they'll set that front foot down on the ball of their foot turned away from the target. So that's what I would teach, but that's basically a byproduct or a way of forcing what you're talking about throwing from the front foot. So that's an interesting way to put it. I like that.
I would say, it's really very easy. Like it's, are we back to chat? Are we back on?
Yeah, we're back on screen.
Okay, hold on. Let me come back over here. Okay, so what I find is that it's really hard to figure out what the fundamentals of a throw are. And if I'm teaching someone, I'm going to say, like, I will always say the ending part of the throw, like take all the X step and all of the move out of it. It's always going to be the same, which is that you have to post up on your plant foot and you have to end up balanced. If I handed you a golf club and I said, swing a golf club, I'd give you 10 swings. You'd never catapult past your plant leg swinging a golf club.
You overestimate my golf skills.
Unless I said do a massive Anheuser and follow through. And then, your back hip would have to come around because we'd be following through down, right? Mm-hmm. But if we're just swinging it like a traditional hyzer, there is no reason that you'd be swinging past that. It's in ball golf, it's a lateral move. In disc golf, it's a lateral move. It's just a move that we have to think of as taking weight and stopping it moving this way. The natural rotation happens because we sort of hit a resistance point where the shoulders are opening and everything is opening and it just sort of stands up. And so what I would say, I in-person lessons, if you can find somebody who knows what they're talking about and better than me, if someone knows what they're doing, they can oftentimes resolve these years of painful stuff And, it's find the best pros you can who worked their way through it. I think I'm going to totally bag on like some of the best. Like Drew Gibson is like the world's biggest bomber. I think he's thrown mid ranges further than anyone will ever throw mid ranges. But like, I think he's been throwing so well for so long, he might not be the guy I want to learn from. Like, I want to learn from the guy who tortured his way through figuring out how it worked and isn't just a natural athlete. I mean, I'd have a hell of a time learning from Tom Brady how to throw a football, but like the kid who worked and worked and worked and went to coaches and, studied film day in and day out might be able to tell you something, And so that's kind of my pitch is to the people out there who have access to either MPO guys or, people who coach in your area, doing it in person, man, you will see gains in an hour that you probably won't see in months of working in a field.
So this is kind of a diversion from what I was going to talk about, but you mentioned a lot about teaching in person. That is something that I am notably bad at. And let me kind of walk through what happens when I tend to teach people in person. Let's say that I'm teaching someone and I have them throw, and they will, for example, they'll have an open stance, or they'll be rounding, or they'll release low and end up air skipping the disc or something like that. And I'll say, this is your problem. This is why the disc is flying the way it is. So to fix that, you want to change this, and this is kind of what it feels like. And then they throw, and they're making the same mistake because muscle memory is muscle memory, and it's really hard to break that. And so the struggle that I have is people want to see instant improvement, and it's really hard to do that. And so and then it feels like it's my fault because I'm not helping them improve right away. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's that is definitely something that I've faced as well. And I think what I do in that scenario is there are these two fundamentals that I will sort of like go to my grave sort of banging the drum on, which is magic trick position and throwing from your front leg. You can take a step into your front leg, but you're teaching somebody and you watch them take a massive toe open step forward, and you're like, you can't do that. You can't. So then I'll put discs in front of their feet, and I'll drop a disc behind their heel, their back heel, and I'll say, that's my nice putter. Don't step on my putter. And then I stand right behind them, and I put my hands like this, and I say, this is your backswing slot. The disc is going to come back to here, and they turn back. And where's the disc, Danny? Where did the beginner guy taking a lesson? Where is it?
Always way over to the side.
Yeah, so here's my backswing, and they go whoop, and they put it behind them, right? Like they're ready to uncork this way. So I'm standing over here, and I'm like, no, disc is right here. So we start in that back position, all the weight on the left foot, backswing, little foot forward. They step on my putter, and the putter that I put in front of their plant leg, they step too far, and I go too far. All right, and we just sit there, and it's a struggle. And that's why I tell people like up front, I'm like, we're going to do an hour, and I charge, I don't even say what I charge. It's not much. I don't do it at all for the money. I just do it. Like the money is strictly, I'll tell you, $25 an hour. And I do that because I'm like, this isn't about me making any money. This is about, I want you to work so that the next time you come back, you're not like, damn, I got to pay this guy $25 and I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
But I say, in this hour, you're going to struggle, and you're going to hate me, and you're going to hate disc golf. Like, it's going to suck because you're going to think you can control your body, and I'm going to say, you're stepping too far. You're stepping too far. You're opening up too much. So I put you in this little box, which is the right shape box for your physical body. And then I say, now we have to learn how to work between position 1, 2, and 3. And there's really those, backswing, center chest, extension forward. What do your hips do in the backswing? They stay back. What do your hips do in the downswing? They stay back. What do your hips do in the follow through? They release forward and they push forward towards the target. So that is how you get into this like athletic stance. You bend your knees, you keep your knees in. I'm going to push on you. I'm going to get in front of you. So when you hit your extension point, I'm going to grab the disc and pull forward. Make sure you're still resisting. Or am I pulling you out of your ability to resist when you're in your extension forward? But like, I don't know how many years you've been trying to teach lessons. I had years where it was really a struggle, like, because I didn't have some syllabus where I was like, okay, so Sidewinder talked about this, and then Blake T had this one article that said, I didn't have any of that. I was just like looking at a guy, watched him throw some putters, and then I'm like, okay, so why don't we try to work on some things? And, the teacher I am today is informed by probably 4 years of trying to get through those difficult to navigate waters. So now I lock them into place, and I'm like, position 1, 2, and 3, and I'm not letting you get out of that. I'm not letting you cheat your foot forward. I'm not letting you take a bigger step than you need to be taken. I'm not letting you blast past your plant foot. And then, I mean, it makes it tough. Like, people are sweating profusely.
So you go all the way back to the very basics. You don't try and just give them one tip that'll help them get a little bit better while they're there. You go all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah, no, and I've worked with guys who are, like, truthfully can throw just as far as I can.
I've helped people outdrive me. People like this guy can't even throw very far. Like, I know what I'm doing wrong. Yeah. Like, I'm working on it. Thank you, but like, I can also tell you what you're doing wrong. That's kind of the
yeah, and that's kind of one of the things. I'm like, look, I'm an old man. Like, I'm 45. I'm not limber. Like, I'm not a 25-year-old kid who just has my natural flexibility and all the things that kind of come with being young and athletic. But I can throw for an hour, and I'm not going to be sore. I don't have any tendonitis. My hands don't hurt. My ankles don't hurt, because, like, number one thing, if you are having any pain in your disc golf life, then stop what you're doing. You are potentially doing damage to your body long term that you may not be able to come back from. I mean, you could be creating arthritis. You could be creating torn tendons that you'd have to have surgery for. It might not work the same afterwards. Like, it should not hurt to play a round of disc golf or 2 rounds of disc golf. And if it does, then that's when I'm like, work on your form in a way that's gonna help you to have a long life in the world of disc golf.
Definitely.
That is like number one thing for me. So like, if I'm training, like, I'm a MPO player and I'm training, like, I got to throw some hard shots. You could throw power shots once a week. But go drag your bag out 300 feet. Go drag your bag out 350 feet and throw your rocks at it and try to put them inside of your circle where you're like, that's my comfort zone. If we have to answer another question, let's go for it.
No, I think we got time for one more, I guess.
Okay.
I gotta go scroll through and find one, unless somebody posts a really good one right now. Somebody's asking about heavy discs, like actual heavy discs. But I don't really see any more questions. So I guess in closing, what's one tip you would give to everyone to try and help them throw farther? Because everybody's looking for that one thing that just clicks and then they'll throw 500 feet. Is that that brace or the?
So my one tip, which is not necessarily like a form tip, it's kind of a form tip. It is, you have to learn your game. You have to learn who you are as a player and what you're capable of. And the only way to do that is to go out to a field and keep studious notes about what you're capable of doing on hyzer, flat, anhyzer, what you're capable of doing on hyzer forehand, flat forehand, and anhyzer forehand. So put your bag out at 250 feet, take your putters, throw them on a hyzer, go up there. Are you inside your putting circle of confidence where you're like, all right, I'm inside at 22 feet. I'm going to be good for 90+% from 22 feet and in. If I'm outside of that, okay, then that's not going to count for what I consider getting my birdie. But if you don't know your own game, then when you're on the course, how are you going to know what shot selection to go for?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, it feels like my hyzer right now is my strongest shot. Maybe it turns out that your flat shot's a better approach shot at 250 feet. I guarantee you it's probably not your Anheuser. Like that's a wonky shot that goes wrong for a lot of people who know how to throw them well. But if you have some metrics to kind of back up your own mental game, and you look at a tree that's right in the middle of the fairway, and I got a forehand hyzer, I got a backhand hyzer. How do I know which one to throw? Well, taking into account some wind, taking into account that I know I'm good 90% at 250 feet with my backhand, and I'm only good at 60% with my forehand, I got to go with the numbers. And since we don't walk around playing this game with caddies, I would say, you have to be your own caddy. You have to know your own game. And when you do that, you start to play disc golf like a strategic game where you're playing your best game. You're not playing someone else's game. You're not throwing the same shots as other people because you think they must know more than you. Did I say that right? They must know more than you? Yeah. No, they can't know your game. You have to know it,
Mm-hmm.
And when you develop that, you will watch your game improve in ways, and the way that you feel about playing disc golf improves drastically because you don't walk away feeling stressed out about why did I miss that shot? Well, you miss that shot because it's not, 40% of the time you're going to miss that shot. Because you were out in the field trying it. And so 40% of the time doesn't work out. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It just means you didn't nail it was just one of the 40% that didn't end up in the putting circle.
I think the mistake that I fell into early on was trying to think about too many different aspects of my form at once. I was like, okay, I got to make sure that I'm doing this with my heel and doing this with my wrist and my grip is like this, and trying to think about all that at once. But simplifying everything down, knowing what your throw is and knowing what you do, especially when you're trying to execute in a tournament, is definitely, or if you're working on something, just work one thing at a time is definitely a great way.
And for the guys who are working on form, strongly suggest form work stays in the field. When it's time to care about your game score, then you are throwing your most confident feeling shot that day. So if you realize that your one shot is just off, like it's just not working, then you're not going to be confident with it. And confident throws work out so much better than half-hearted throws. That's where, yoinks come into play, and throwlers and all the ugly stuff that we get to laugh about when we're watching Simon Lazat do it on Central Coast or whatever. But, everybody has those moments where they don't really commit to it and bad stuff happens. Well, when you're in a round, commit and just be like, yeah, at least I'm going down swinging on a full commitment shot,
Sometimes you just got to send it.
You just got to send it, man.
I like it. Awesome. Yeah. Well, Jason, thank you for taking time to join me here on this stream. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and hanging out. Your questions were fantastic. And I hope to do this again with the different form gurus. That's the word that I use. It's just the word I go back to. There's got to be a better one. The knowledge bases of form teachings on the internet. So let me know who you think I should try and get on a call with in the future. Thanks again, Jason. Anything you want to shout out before we hop off?
Not really, no. I just appreciate you carrying the torch, and I hope that everybody out there is being conscientious, making good decisions, and we all get through this, and we get to hang out, give some high fives, and be safe. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, thank you again. You can check out Jason's YouTube at youtube.com/loopghost. He's on Blogspot at heavydisc.blogspot.com. That's some of the best form reading that I've ever been through. On Reddit, he's Excuse My Triceratops, and I've been meaning to ask about this. Is this one incident with the Triceratops that was horribly bad, and so you're consistently apologizing for it, or are they just constantly?
behavior, just
Oh my
years and
goodness.
decades of bad behavior.
Just
I've
unruly.
just stopped apologizing for him, to be honest. Yeah, heavydisc.com will get you there.
Oh,
I have not done a ton with that. From time to time, I still show up on DGCR. I have a couple friends that I'll jump in and sort of say stuff to. But yeah, I do feel like disc golf has been a joy for me for the last nearly 10 years of my life, and I'm grateful. Like it feels like a lot of people will hit a certain age in their life where they lose the joy of things that are just fun, and this is one of those sports that it is just fun, and it maintains friendships that you might not have otherwise, and don't let the last thing I'm going to go on Danny, is don't let the desire to improve your form take away from the joy of the game. And it can suck the life out of it. And what I will say is that, Danny, who's the best thrower in the game right
oh,
now?
Paul Macbeth.
Paul Macbeth, way up there. Who throws better mechanics, do you think? I'm going to say Simon or Eagle can outthrow Paul in an open field.
And distance-wise, probably, yeah.
Pure form, those guys are mashing it.
Mm-hmm.
They still screw up all the time. You got to be able to live with this game being full of moments you just have to laugh at and just say, yep, that just happened. Okay. Be the guy that people want to call and have on your card. You'll have much more fun with this game if you're the guy that people are like, that guy's fun to play with.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate all you've done. I definitely would not be where I am without all of your teachings. Either that, or I would be just a lot worse at it. So I really appreciate you. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we will catch you next time. Wait, I'm supposed to say, always remember, slow is smooth, and smooth is far. And end stream.